Hello everyone, welcome to this video. My name is Amitabh, a final year student and currently working as a DevOps engineer intern. In this video, we are going to learn about AWS VPC peering, and we also going to cover what is a AWS VPC and what is a VPC peering, why to create a VPC peering connection, and how to create a VPC peering. So without any delay, let's get started. So, what is a AWS VPC? Basically, AWS VPC stand for Virtual Private Cloud, and it is a logically isolated network that allows us to launch multiple resources within it, and it can be EC2 instance and the Lambda function and etc. And what is a VPC peering? So, basically, if you have multiple VPC in your region, suppose this is a VPC you have in US East 1, and this is a VPC that you have in EU West 1, and you want to communicate within this VPC, and you have launched the EC2 instance in this VPC and another EC2 instance in this VPC, and you want to communicate privately using these EC2 instances within this VPC. So for that we create a VPC peering connection, so we can communicate privately using these EC2 instances within this VPC, not using any internet gateway and the public internet access to communicate within these VPCs. And how to create it? So for that, go to your AWS console and go to your VPC dashboard and select your VPC. And we have a default VPC. The idea is that we're gonna create another VPC, and we will launch one instance in created VPC and one instance in a default VPC. And from default VPC, we are going to call the created EC2 instance in a created VPC, that can be a prod VPC. And we're gonna see how we can privately communicate from default VPC to the created prod VPC using the EC2 instance, and we're not going to use any public IP and the internet gateway and etc. So for that, now click on create a VPC. So that is a manual method. You create a VPC and add then subnet for the internet gateway and the net gateway. So at the same place, you select the VPC and more, and we're gonna add it as a prod. So this will create a VPC for us and create a 4 subnet. And this is the route table, and this is the network connection. This is a internet gateway, and this is the network connection for us. And you can see the public CIDR block for this VPC. So you can see this CIDR block, and there is a no IPv6 CIDR block we want. And this is the availability zone. So currently we're gonna select 2, and the number of public subnet will also be 2. We're gonna have the NAT gateway, which is not needed, but let's create it. And let's click on create a VPC. It will automatically create everything for you, and VPC and the subnet within that VPC. And let's wait for it to be created. So our VPC, which is a prod VPC, is created. You can simply go here and refresh it. So you can see there is a 2 VPC. So now we are going to launch a EC2 instance in a prod VPC. So click on launch EC2 instance, and we're gonna name as a prod VPC, prod EC2. So write it, and we're gonna select the Amazon Linux, and this is the instance type. We're gonna select or create a key pair, because we don't need to create a key pair because we are going to use the EC2 instance connect, and we're gonna use the created VPC. So this is our prod VPC, and we're gonna launch it in a public subnet, because if you want to connect using EC2 instance connect, then you have to launch EC2 instance in a public subnet. So we're gonna enable the auto assign IP. So we're gonna create a security group also. So this is the security group name, and we are allowing the SSS connection, and we're gonna also add a security group rule for the HTTP, so that we can access our application and from anywhere. So this is a security group, and in advanced detail we are going to add user data for to install the HTTPD, which is a Apache, but it called as HTTPD in Amazon Linux. So we are installing and starting it and appending a heading in a index.html. So we're gonna launch it. So after EC2 instance is launched, within that period, the in a boot time, that user data is going to be executed and run and install the HTTPD for us. So we can see the EC2 instance is created. So let's wait for a minute and running status. So you can see this is a EC2 instance is currently running. We will copy the public IP and open it in a browser as a HTTP. So we're gonna use the port 80. So HTTPD is also run on the port 80. So you can see that HTTPD going to work, but let's wait for some second. Or just a second. So you can see the HTTPD is working and correctly providing the output to us. And now we are going to launch another EC2 instance in a default VPC. And from that, we are going to curl the EC2 instance. And let's see whether the EC2 instance are going to connected with a private IP or not. So we're going to add as a default VPC, default EC2, sorry. Okay, same EC2 instance. And this is a key pair. We also select the same, and this is the default VPC, and we are creating security group. You can allow HTTP, but it is not needed. So now we launch the EC2 instance. So this is the EC2 instance we have launched in default VPC. So you can see there is a two EC2 instance that is running. This is a default EC2. You can check the private IP is this, and for the prod EC2 there is a private IP is this. Now we are going to connect both the EC2 instance, and let's see we can communicate privately. So we're gonna click on connect. This is the EC2 instance that where we are running our HTTPD, and also we are going to connect that created EC2, which is a default EC2, and let's wait for it. Okay, so click on connect, EC2 instance connect. So this is a default EC2 instance, and from default EC2 instance, we are going to call the EC2 instance of prod VPC. Let's see we can connect or not. So this is a default EC2 and this is a prod EC2. Now we are going to copy the private IP address, and this is a prod EC2. Now from here we can easily curl it. So if I paste the IP address, so if I enter, you can see we can easily curl because it is the same instance where the HTTPD is running. If we are going to curl it from the default EC2 instance, then you can see we cannot communicate it privately because both are in a different VPC. So you can see we are going to get a connection timeout error and any error. So to communicate within this EC2 instance, we are going to create a peering connection. So in a VPC, in this section, you can see the peering connection. Click on that, and from here, you can click on create VPC peering, and you can enter anything demo VPC peering. Okay, so requester is our the default VPC, and this is the CIDR of that, and the another VPC in my same account and the in the same region, and even you can connect to another VPC from another account and another region. So this is acceptor, and simply we are going to click on create VPC peering connection. So it will ask to accept the peering connection. As we are in the same account, so we can easily accept it. So this is not an end, still we cannot access the EC2 instance from default EC2. We have to modify route table of both VPC so that we can allow traffic from one VPC to another. So we will modify the route table, and this is the route table of let's wait for this. So this is the route table we have to modify. So this is the route we currently have. And if you want to check what is the CIDR for your VPC, you can simply click on this prod VPC and the default VPC. So the default VPC have CIDR is this. So we're gonna copy this and we're gonna in a route table. This is the route table we have to modify and click on added. You can add the copy route and select the peering connection. In a peering connection, you can select that created peering connection. Still, we cannot communicate within those VPC because we need to modify the route table of default VPC also. Okay. So for that, let's scroll it and you can see this is a default VPC route table and we have to modify it. So let's click on it and we have to add a route for that. So before that, we need to identify the CIDR for the prod VPC. So you can copy this CIDR of the prod VPC, go to route table, and this is a default route table. So click on route, added route, and add route. You can simply copy paste that route copied and peering connection, and this is the peering connection. Click on save changes. Now we can easily communicate between those VPC EC2 instances. If I show you, so this is the uh, default VPC EC2 instance and this is a prod EC2 instance. So if I show you, this is a prod VPC and this is a default VPC EC2 instance. So you can see we can easily communicate using a private IP between those VPC by establishing a VPC peering connection. So this is how you can establish a connection between two VPC and easily communicate using the private IP. That's all for this video. I hope you learned something new. मिलते हैं next video में, तब तक के लिए जय हिंद, bye.